Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the NRG 10K here in Fort Wayne. I'm your host, Mason Clark, joined by my co-host, Devin O'Donnell. Devin, how you doing?
I'm doing well. We took a little bit of an extended break there because we had a nice little fast round, but we are very excited to get into some top eight action. There's a lot of sweet matches here, and I think we're going to be starting with a really nice one as well. So really excited to see who takes this one down.
Yeah, we'll talk about those sweet decks here in a second, but we do have some spice lined up for top eight, which is always the best way to have a top eight. But let's go over our top eight first. So we actually have the team of Malele and First Seed playing against the team of Mantor. So the Malele team, one of the undefeateds, and then drew the last two rounds in order to kind of lock up being the first seed here. Strong team. We see Connor as someone who is already qualified for NRG Championship by winning a showdown just 2 months ago. But his teammate Wasburn is actually still in the race, and this is a great finish to top eight. And if they can finish up in first place, that will actually jump him into second place for the at-large bid, which is really, really good. We're going to check out the other side of the top eight. We have the team of Warfield versus Berglander. We saw the Berglander team earlier. They were the people who played the Uppsala Spells deck and the Spirits deck. The team of Warfield, Pal, and Strassman, if you watch our energy coverage, you see this team a lot. Warfield, Pro Tour top eight competitor. Piper Pal, a moto grinder, crushes all the time, and one of the most successful NRG players in the history of our game. When you look at the leaderboard and the conversion rate, Pal crushes it. So that is going to be an exciting match. I can't wait to see how that one goes there. We look at the other side of the bracket, though. We're going to have Slimek versus Cross. So we saw Slimek's team earlier. That was the mono green team that drew with Dykeman's team. They end up winning their next round. We have Brickman with back-to-back NRG top eights here. Brickman top eight at our last event, playing this same four-color modern deck. So that's really exciting to see that success and that sort of master of a craft pay off here. I'm not quite sure about Cross's team here, and I kind of look over it. It looks like they're the Doomsday and Mill player that we saw in round two, if I'm not mistaken. Yep. But finally, this is our feature match here. We're going to watch the team of Dominick versus Benjamin here for the first match of the quarterfinals. And this is a spicy one. We're going to start on modern. So if you remember in round five, Dominick's team won. They shook hands with Malele's team. We're going to shook hands again. They're now our number 2 seed going into top eight here. So they're on the play for everyone against Malele, which is really important in this sort of event. And they were playing the Karuga Fires deck the Karuga control deck in modern, which is super exciting. But they're going to be playing against the Jeskai Breach deck in modern as well. And that deck is typically a really good matchup against the control deck. So it's going to be really interesting to see. And we have some extra spice in there as well, right, Devin?
Oh yeah, well, if you take a look at Melee, it's labeled as 5-color Yawgmoth because our players love to troll us today. It's a theme, overarching theme of the day. But yeah, it looks like this is going to be a sweet one. There are some very interesting cards in the Jeskai Breach deck. There, as you mentioned, we had talked about it in the break. There's a Hall of Helion's Generosity, which can recycle Fable the Mirror Breaker, Urza Saga, and then your typical Breach fare. You know, the Breaches, the Emrys, all that kind of stuff. So this should be a really interesting matchup with Breach versus 4-color. And that's where we're going to start. So it should be a lot of fun.
Yep, and players are finishing up looking at deck lists and getting ready here. So we're going to have the matches for you in just 1 second. But yeah, it's very interesting. So a good friend of mine is Jesse Robkin, who kind of helped put the Breach on the map here and has kind of dominated the energy circuit. And I was the punching bag for her on 4-color Yorion a lot. I spent a lot of time just getting my head kicked in that matchup. And so let me tell you that seeing Hall of Generosity out of the sideboard, in the deck and the lands is actually super scary because often – you would win because you'd like run them out of breaches or like they couldn't saga you enough. And then like you kind of just barely stabilized and you won. But now Hall of Generosity, it's going to be really hard to ever run out of gas. And the 5-color, the control decks just don't actually kill quick enough. Karuga is technically bigger than Yorion, but does take some time. So it's going to be really interesting to see as we're about to jump down here in just a minute. But yeah, the other matches on that team, in case you're curious, there's Mono Blue Spirits, is what it says, but it's really mono green Devotion from one player. And then I believe they are playing against Izzet Phoenix and Pioneer. So that's going to be really cool to see. That's a matchup that kind of bread and butter classic of old and Pioneer kind of fell away for a little bit for Phoenix, but it's come back in force ever since Nathan destroyed the Mox.
Oh yeah, for sure. There was the Mox definitely had quite a few Phoenix players. Obviously Nathan and believe it was Nathan and Marcio in the finals. They were both playing Phoenix. I think they tested together, and they both knew that people were going to show up with mono green, people were going to show up in Rakdos, and they really tailored made their deck to be able to beat the mono green deck. And I think I think it's overall a close matchup, but I think depending on how the deck lists are configured, the Phoenix deck has a lot of ways to gain significant edges, specifically with something like Thing in the Ice.
Yeah, and then post board you have all those powerful cards like Disdainful Stroke, etc., that really help swing the game as well. So it's really kind of changed a lot about how Pioneer is, and we've seen things like Red, Black, and Mono Green be kind of the main narrative, and part of the reason that happened is because Red Black was able to keep down Phoenix with things like Go Blank, but times have changed and they moved away. So it's gonna be interesting to see how our top 8 plays out there. There's a lot of Mono Green, but let's hop on down to the match and watch some awesome modern, the people's format, if you would. And we have our players shuffling up. Once again, we have Breach from the hands of Benjamin versus 4-color control from Thomas.
Yeah, and it is, as chat pointed out, it is Hippo time. There's a Karuga revealed for Thomas. This is kind of the deck that has been picking up, ever since the banning of Yorion. People have tried to get their 4-color fix in. I'm sure you as well. I know you're a big fan of that 4-color Yorion deck. So this is kind of the evolution of that, where you no longer have the Yorion to generate advantage, but you would think a card like Karuga puts this massive deck building restriction, but with the printing of Leyline Binding, you really get access to a premium removal spell for 2, sometimes even 1 mana, and it allows you to play a card like Karuga, which gives you a lot of that same advantage that Yorion did.
Yeah, and we've kind of learned from the Cascade decks, right? Like Rhinos, which you're a really big fan of, along with the Glimpse combo deck, that you can play these kind of cards that cheat on the cost of something like Karuga or Cascade and actually still stay around in modern. So like Fire Ice, Leyline Binding, Dead Gone, those have all been huge players in allowing things like Karuga to actually exist.
Right. Yeah. Dead Gone, Leyline Binding, Fire Ice, just allowing you to give you this 2 minute interaction, which is, that's almost like cheating on the Karuga aspect of it, because Karuga normally would allow you to play, only 3 and up, but because you're cheating on that with all those removal spells, it allows you to play this interactive game, and then obviously you have the free spells like Fury and Solitude, which gives you interaction as early as turn 0 when you need it. If you're maybe on the draw against a Ragavan or something like that, having you don't always want a Solitude or Ragavan, but sometimes sometimes you just got to, and having that option is really big. And then just the fact that I played a little bit, actually played an RCQ with this Karuga deck, and there are games where, especially with like Touch the Spirit Realm, or where I would just go, like cast Karuga with some mana up off of an Omnath, draw 4 cards, and then, maybe like second main phase, blink the Karuga, end of turn, comes back, draw 4 more. You kind of get that same feeling as you did with like the Ephemerate, and also Touch the Spirit Realm, specifically with the Incarnations, has that same role where you can go, obviously you can't do it on turn 1 because Touch is 2 mana, but you can go turn 2, say, Evoke a Fury, trigger on the stack, Touch the Spirit Realm, comes back into turn, and it gives you kind of that same exact thing that Ephemerate does. So it's another way to kind of utilize that.
Yeah, super important. We're going to see a mulligan here for the Breach player down to 5, it looks like. But yeah, Touch the Spirit Realm, like you mentioned, does a good Ephemerate impersonation, but also just being an O-ring that hits artifacts and creatures has been surprisingly relevant in some matchups. Touch of the Spirit Realm's Flickering of Fury, obviously good against Hammer, but sometimes you just O-ring the Hammer and it's just gone. And that like actually kind of matters in a weird way. And it's kind of the funny thing of Magic, right? Where these effects probably not playable if it's just that one effect. But when you add on that little extra something like the channel here, suddenly you get these really cool, unique cards that 3 or 4 years ago we could not see seeing play in a format like Modern, but now just a little extra spice and they work.
Right. Yeah. It's just you're like you said, you're not paying for one half of the card, you're paying for the utility. And a lot of these newer cards, especially cards that have been designed over the past couple of years, really give you that utility. You think of a card like Fire Ice. That card is so ubiquitous in modern, but if you were playing that card with just one half of it, it would be almost, completely unplayable. You would never pay 2 mana for either half of that. But the fact that you get the flexibility and the utility of having both options is just, it's so powerful.
Yep, and we're gonna see a Windswept Heath and a passing of the turn. Not a whole lot happens in the first couple turns for the Karuga deck, as you might expect. You do have a good amount of removal, but looks like we are just gonna get a fetch here. Probably grab one of the Triomes, and we're gonna go Ragavan Mox Opal or Mox Amber. Sorry,
Mox Opal.
It feels that way.
You let me know when they unban Mox Opal, and then we can talk.
I'm sure Twitter will let you know. But yeah, Ragavan Triome, the fetch up here. Or Ketria, sorry, the old teamer one. Look at me. I tried to flex on knowing what the actual triumphs were and got. That's on me. I shouldn't have.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Thomas's triumphs are all of the
Mhm.
fancy versions. So this is going to be we're going to play the game with chat of which triumph. Guess that
I'm normally
triumph.
pretty good at it. I know the color combos, like Just Guy Teamer. I know that. The actual names, that's where I struggle. So we're gonna have to see how I do here. So we do see a snow-covered plains, and it looks like we maybe thought about doing something like Fire Ice or Leyline Binding. We're taking a little second thought about it, and just gonna Leyline Binding this Ragavan and get it out of the way.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Normally, you wouldn't see main phase leyline binding on a Ragavan because you're worried about your opponent going land dash a second one. But because Benjamin deployed that Mox Amber, Thomas is in a spot where, well, I don't want to give Benjamin an extra mana. And it's funny because maybe Benjamin does have the second Ragavan, and Benjamin's thinking, well, normally you don't need to deploy that Mox Amber. It's like, well, what am I going to do with the mana on turn two, especially against the revealed Karuga? But if you can bait your opponent into thinking, well, I need this Mox Amber for mana, and maybe it's like maybe you get Thomas to fire off the landing and then you just have the second Ragavan. So maybe a little bit of game inside the game, as it
100%.
were.
Yeah, we do see an Emery here, still costing one less off the Mox Amber, still going to work here. I'm going to mill four. One of the kind of key cards in the matchup, especially in the early game, is a way to generate a lot of extra value. And it looks like we hit an Aether Spellbomb as the only artifacts that do matter for Emery there. Just a bunch of lands besides that. And pass it on.
Yeah, I mean, just anything to cast off this Emery is pretty good. Just even the Spellbomb can just get you that extra card for every be a personal Howling
Mhm.
Mind. So definitely going to see Thomas fire off this
Yeah,
Dead
and
Gone.
Dead Gone clearing up the Emery, especially on a mold of 5. You don't want to give your opponent any chance to really get back into this sort of thing. And we have another Emery. Looks like it is going to resolve. We don't have Counterspell in these control decks these days. And we milled over multiple Expressive Iterations and our Hall of Generosity. Whew, that was one of the key cards and kind of going longer in sort of this mulligan to 5 game.
Yeah, and I'm gonna assume there's no way to get that back. I'll pull up the deck list real quick. But yeah, once that thing's gone, there is no getting that back. You unfortunately can't recycle it. Like, you have Emery to get back artifacts, you have the Hall to get back enchantments, but there's no way to get back lands. So once that thing gets milled over, no longer having access to that. And especially like you said, if this game goes long, which we both very much expect it to, that could be a pretty big loss for Benjamin
100%.
going
Yeah.
long.
And we're seeing an Adatha Triumph fetched up here, the Abzan one. I'm on top of my game here. I'm
Oh, there you
thriving.
go, 2 for 2.
And we picked up a Misty for the turn. It looks like we have an Omnath in hand. So might just be a Slam Omnath's turn. There's probably some consideration to like, oh, do I want to Solitude this Emery? We did mention there's a Aether Spellbomb in the graveyard. That'll make it so it's really hard to kill the Emery in the future, and you can kind of cycle it away for a card each turn. But
Yeah, the issue with that is then you have to pitch the Omnath. I feel like if it, I almost just definitely want to go Omnath, let my opponent have the one extra card because you're going to get the card back off of Omnath anyway. So you can afford to let Benjamin get one card, and then because you're essentially getting that card back with the Omnath, and then you can just Solitude it next turn, go about your day. But I mean, obviously there is some consideration now. You're letting Benjamin untap with the Mox Amber because Benjamin did miss a land drop, so something to
yeah,
think about
little
there
give
as
a little
well.
take. And we do see the Otawara as the land for turn into the Omnath. Didn't draw a white card, so no consideration on Solituding there. And we're going to see Ragavan here get cast, and then we're going to use Emery to play the Spellbomb. Looks like we're maybe shortcutting, just unsummoning it. Oh, no, maybe just a little assumption here from Thomas, but we're going to wait for right now.
Yeah, you could even see maybe if Thomas goes to play a fetch land and then sacrifice the fetch land, you could respond to the breaking of the fetch land and then bounce the Omnath so that Thomas doesn't get that second trigger for the boost of mana.
Yep. We do see Thomas here just attack in for 4, trying to probably get the Aether Spell Bomb as a bait, just so with Omnath, it's really easy with a fetch land, right, to actually play that card again and still do something with your turn. So looks like that's happening here, but Benjamin's not going to take it. It's just going to fall down to 16 here. And then Thomas is going to fetch and no response. We're going to hold the spell bomb. We might just be working towards a combo win. Like, hey, I can't actually beat this Omnath nonsense. And all I can really do is kind of just draw some cards and hope it's good enough.
Yeah, just wants to cycle the spellbomb, try and dig a little bit closer to breach. Obviously, if you bounce the Omnath, Thomas can just replay it. You're down another card, and maybe Benjamin doesn't feel like he has the resources to kind of grind through that type of thing. Also, if Thomas say plays the Solitude and targets either the Ragavan or the Emery, then you have the spellbomb to kind of protect that, where you can just bounce your own creature and have it not die to the Solitude. So maybe that's what's going through Benjamin's mind as well.
Yep, 100%. And it looks like Thomas just making sure to get the right fetch here. It's pretty easy to mess up your mana here, especially when you have so many like monocolored sources. We have an Odoar and a Plains, so you don't actually have perfect mana despite being on 5. And the Omnath trigger to make 4 mana.
Which one's that, Mason?
But oh no, that's Rogren, baby. That's
There you
Jeskai.
go.
Easy
3 for 3.
peasy.
Let's go. Let's go. 3 for 3.
Easy peasy. I've got a lot of games with that one and that one I know. It's these newfangled ones they play for Leyline Binding. Back in my day.
Oh yeah,
Anyways,
the Jund and all those ones. Those ones I'm still not sure on, so I'm with you on that.
yeah, we're gonna try and Solitude the Imri, but we're gonna pop our Spellbomb and put the Imri back in our hand to try and save it. And we're just gonna see a Fable the Mirrorbreaker with the remaining amount of mana here from Thomas. Grabbing the Goblin token. And that's a $10 Goblin token. So that's how you know this is the successor to the money pile.
Very, very expensive. I choose to use my Pokemon cards and move out of my day. So I can't afford that thing.
I just always go to the NRG booth, look at the great deals, and pick something up. That's what I personally. Anyways, we're attacking with a Ragavan here, tanking on if we want to trade Goblin Shaman or Solitude. It might seem like a small thing, like do you actually need the treasure? But with a card like Karuga, it's like 3 mana to pick up, 5 to play, and then you draw a bunch of cards. So there is some consideration to, do I really care about this lifelink versus like having that 1 more mana? And those small little decisions are the things that make or break tournaments.
Right, and Thomas already has the fetch land rolled up for the Omnath this turn, so this is gonna be a tough turn for Benjamin. Thomas, I believe, is probably gonna go fetch land, crack it, pick up the Karuga, cast it, draw 4, and it's gonna be it's gonna be a very, very uphill battle for Benjamin from this turn forward.
100%. We crack in here for 7, putting Benjamin down to 4, gain 4 life, and we might not even fetch because if we get another fetch land, okay, we are just going to fetch and use some mana here, but you do always have the potential, to get the Omnath deal 4, which does come up a surprising amount. But this might just be a pick up Karuga, play Karuga, draw 4 cards, call it a day.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. I think Thomas is maybe out of a little bit out of gas, but that's the best part about playing companions is when you're out of gas, you just pick that bad boy up, and all of a sudden, with a card like Karuga, just being able to draw so many cards off of it. I've been playing a lot of that card in Pioneer with the Fires deck, and it's just the games where you get to do the Karuga thing. It's it's almost like a last resort, but just always having the ability to do that is so powerful in a deck that can trade 1 for 1 so effectively like this deck can.
Yep. Yeah, and we are going to see the Kruga picked up and then, use some of that floating mana. And then with the last one floating, we're going to tap 4 here and just make sure we have all of our triumphs up so we can play whatever fun cards we want. But by my count, we have 4 things on the battlefield that has CMC 3 or greater. So we get to draw 4 cards. Not bad.
Oh, and he even picked up a Fire Ice to be able to kill the Emery. This is, oh boy.
Yeah.
Oh,
and
boy.
we're gonna
As the Fury too. My goodness.
Yeah, the Fury is so great here too because, like you mentioned, the Fires got picked up. So this allows you to have another kill spell in case you somehow try to get a Breach with a Mox Amber mana going. You can just kill it. Oh, it looks like we're just gonna ice the land actually and just cut Benjamin off the mana for the turn. Probably gonna require
Stone
a
Rain,
lot.
baby.
Yeah, and Benjamin's like, nope, you got me. And while that was happening, Auterhoff on the team of Thomas here won game 1 as Izzet Phoenix. So we're gonna hop over to Pioneer. Game 1 has already gone to Phoenix, so we're gonna have to see what's going on versus Mono Green. Looks like they're resolving mulligans right now. But
yeah, and I know we had discussed the Phoenix versus Mono Green matchup in the intro, and I wanted to take a look at Hayden's deck list. So main deck, only 1 copy of Thing in the Ice, but 2 more in the sideboard. So getting to go up to 3 of those post board, very, very good in this matchup. There's another card in Hayden's sideboard that I have to look this one up because I haven't seen it before. We got Burn Down the House, and I have to imagine this one's probably coming in this matchup. What do you think about it?
oh yeah, this is one of the new tech from the Phoenix players to kind of beat up on some of the aggro decks, but also have a sweeper for the green decks as well. Dealing 5 to all the creatures and planeswalkers means you can actually kill planeswalkers in this deck, which is something that's kind of a problem. Maybe his Brother's End will change that the new set. We're not sure. But this card actually just kills everything but Cavalier and allows you to reset. So super good card for matchups like this, and also surprising matchups like mono white or maybe the Gruul boat deck we've been seeing. We're hearing a good bit amount. We actually haven't gotten a chance to cover it yet, but we do have our Pioneer 5K tomorrow, so I'm hopeful to get some Gruul boat action on the scene. By the way, on the other side of the table, the Mono Red Prism player McKinnon has won game 1. So up again versus Delver. Pretty impressive too, being on the draw there. The entire team of Auterhoff here is on the play for being the second seed in our tournament. So they all three got to go first, which is a big, big get. And Monterey Prison stealing that one has got to be a good sign for them.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like you said, being on the draw against Delver, anytime you get to win a game against Delver, just being on the draw against Ace and Wasteland, has got to feel like you stole one there almost. Um, another card that I want to kind of highlight real quick in Hayden's deck, 2 copies in the sideboard, Invoke the Winds. So this is part of a cycle from Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. It's quad blue and a colorless to gain control of an artifact or creature and untap it. You think that what's coming in this matchup, or you think that's more for like Ledger Shredder and kind of the blue mirrors?
I would guess probably the blue mirror type stuff. It is interesting. It's just a little bit, I think, too much mana, but you might have it as part of your board plan as like, hey, Cavalier's a card we have kind of a problem beating. There are some other weird sort of hate things that some green players might have, and I want to take this. But yeah, I imagine that's much more of a card for other matchups where it's more about one singular thing and less about having a critical mass of things.
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking that, like you said, against Cavalier, maybe it might be a little important to, or like just being able to take their devotion off the battlefield because it's pretty hard for you to answer Cavalier otherwise. But the issue with that is that also means that Cavalier resolved, which is
Mm-hmm.
just the trigger itself plus providing devotion on that turn is probably already bad enough for you that you just, yeah, I'm kind of with you. I don't know if it's necessarily for this matchup.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd be curious to see. I imagine that's funny enough, probably another card for the Gruul Boat deck or something like that. Something
Yeah.
like the Gruul Boat deck, kind of this mid-rangey Gruul deck that I'm sure we're gonna get to see soon. It's one of the up-and-comers in Pioneer. But it looks like we do have a keep on 5 here for Izzet Phoenix from Hayden. And it looks like the game's gonna get started. Mono Green is on the play. Do we have the dreaded elf on one? And we do.
When don't
That's a
they?
that's so true. But we do have the Spikefield Hazard. All right, elf down and exiled too. No scavenging use nonsense today.
Right, and that's the thing about this matchup is Hayden has so many ways to kill an elf on turn 1 between Spikefield Hazard, Lightning Axe, I almost said Love Axe, Lightning Axe, as well as Fiery Impulse. It's very, very few and far between of games where Hayden doesn't have an answer to an elf, and you obviously have to realize that from Aren's side, where it's do I want to keep this hand that's kind of reliant on elf, and it looks like having the Wolfwillow Haven was very massive here. See if we got a Spell Pierce here from Hayden. That would be
Yeah,
a
I
big one.
think Hayden bottomed the Spell Pierce from the Mulligan. And we do resolve the Kiora here, letting us untap the Wolfwillow Haven. And it looks like, we have another land. Oh, we just like an Old Growth Troll this turn. Lovestruck Beast. Okay, so that's going to give us another card and a pretty big board presence if we can find a 1/1 to wake it up.
Yeah. Now, honestly, if you're on Hayden's side, that's probably the 3-drop that you'd rather see than something like a Old Growth Troll, because, like you said, it's not able to attack quite yet. Maybe has to. Aren has to maybe commit a little bit more mana into that before they can attack with it. So it also provides less devotion if there's a Nykthos as well. So maybe something that Hayden would rather see. Also, it trades 1-for-1 with something like a Lightning Axe, whereas the Old Growth Troll you can get it back, put on a forest.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, we are going to see Elf into Nykthos here. And I believe our devotion count is a sweet, sweet 3. So not doing too much. We're floating it here. Oh, 4 because the Wolfwillow Haven. Yeah, a little Ancient Tomb action. And we also have
Yeah.
Cure to untap, so we can play a 5-drop if we want to.
There's the troll.
Oh, 1 floating. That's pretty big.
Got 1 floating.
Cure untap as well.
Oh yeah, because we still have the layer untapped. Okay.
It looks like we're just going to use the Oath here and try to find something. We might not have any more gas, and looks like we have Elf and 2 lands as the options.
Interesting to not use the Kiora to untap the Nykthos first, make mana, but I guess, yeah, I don't know. Because you figure if you hit something off the Oath, maybe you want to go towards that, but...
Yeah, agreed. Maybe just being low on resources when to protect the Kiora's loyalty. Might be some unironically long-term thinking about cards like Burn Down the House. We see Hayden kind of flicking the
true.
fingers like, hit me for 5. I'm going to take 5. I'm going to take 5. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, both players have deck lists, so like you said, the burn down the house is something that Aren is aware of. So definitely wants to try to play around it as much as they can.
Yeah, and we do see it just using the Cure to play the Elf here, get some more in play. And Galvanic killing the 2 at once. Interesting. Yeah, kind of, Aren was like, oh, it must be safe if I attack with Lovestruck Beast. I can deploy this. And Hayden was like, no, I was willing to take 5 to get you. And get you they did.
Yeah, see, the awkward part about this is, and why layer is so good is, we no longer have a 1/1 for this beast, but we can just fire up the layer for 1, and then be able to get in with the beast to put a little bit more pressure, effectively a 2-turn clock on Hayden. So, just another thing that that layer of the Hydra. I mean, also you could obviously just fire up the layer for 1 million as well if you had nothing else to do
I
with
was
your
gonna say
mana
that's
too.
where you
So
and I differ, Devin. You have big dreams of playing around everything. Me, Hell of the Hydra, 30 mana, all in, attack. And we have about 30 mana, give or take, right here. As we resolve Cavalier of Thorns, we're going to draw off our Kiora and get the trigger. And if we find something like the Nykthos, this could be a big swing. Well, looks like we found at least another lair, maybe a forest in the back there as well. I can kind of figure out what you want to do with that.
yeah, the second layer not quite as good because the first one requires a lot of mana to invest into it. But I mean, you might as well take it, right? If you have enough mana if you have enough devotion next turn with the Nykthos, you can maybe fire up 2
Yeah,
layers.
there might be. Looks like, yeah, there's some consideration maybe taking the forest just because there's something else to play in hand, but it probably won't be that big a deal. Looks like it was just an elf anyway, so it doesn't super matter. And we have a lot of power in play, and the elf will actually turn on the Love Strike Beast again, which is super important. And
I have to say, I really, really approve of these Llanowar elves. These are very, very nice looking Llanowar elves.
great
So
elves. Yeah,
props
we
to
do have
Aren.
the 2 floating on the green. Oh, so it looks like we're just going to activate this layer of the Hydra for 1 million billion. Looks like it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8, 9, 10.
How much did he
Oh,
have
I
floating?
think we had 2 floating was what the dice thing said, but maybe I'm mistaken. Looks like maybe we're not playing on layer of the Hydra. 7.
6.
Oh,
Okay, we're gonna. Oh, we're making mana with the layer.
yeah,
Okay.
now we're playing Karn. And we're probably
Okay,
just gonna go.
gotcha.
Oh, we just picked up our deck. We need to randomize that.
That's awkward. Yeah, randomize that. Probably
Yeah.
not. Nothing because I don't think there was anything. There was no known information. There's nothing put on
Yeah,
the
no
bottom.
mulligans,
So
anything like that.
it's been a
Yeah,
long day.
and the game wins like pretty in sight, right? Like your opponent mulligan to 5, you resolved your super powerful Planeswalker and Karn. You're probably going to grab the Godfarer statue here in a second and make your Phoenix opponent have to pay 2 more mana for each card. A little oopsie poopsie, honest mistake. Happens to the best of us. Do you know what Hannah Montana says,
Yeah.
Devin?
No, but you're gonna tell me.
Everybody makes mistakes. Everybody has those days. So, it happens.
Okay. All right. I thought it was gonna be deeper than that, but
no, Hannah Montana is not the deepest thing in the world, but it is applicable here. Looks like we signed out a Llanowar elf.
Wait. Okay, hold on. Yeah, I just saw that too. You picked up the sideboard and you saw an elf. Now, I know that sounds kind of insane, but honestly, like on the draw against Phoenix, I don't like. Nah, I mean, I probably wouldn't do it, but I could see where you're coming from. I mean, there's if we talked about the spike fields, the lightning axes, and the impulses, but that's probably just too deep. I think.
Yeah, I have liked this sort of strategy against Rakdos because against Rakdos, some of the ways you lose is you keep these all in elf hands, and so you just kind of force yourself not to do it. But I've never done it when I'm on the play before, so it is interesting to see it here. But hey, it has kind of worked in spades here as we attack for 9, and yeah, we're gonna see a pick up the cards here. Only 4 mana. Godfair statue does that, so that's gonna do it for Pioneer. It's all tied up there. We're gonna hop over to Legacy. We have Mono Red Prison versus Izzet Delver. And it looks like, Mono Red Painter, my mistake. Delver here in the play has Leyline of the Void, so we're not going to see much Murktides. And we have a Grinding Station as well, which means we're really close to assembling the combos. We just flipped a Delver, revealing a Ponder.
Yeah, and you'll notice the Leyline of the Void in Saralyn's on Saralyn's side of the battlefield, which is going to prevent Dominick from ever setting up, establishing a Murktide Regent, setting up Delirium for Dragon's Rage Channeler. So a very, very impactful card as it kind of cuts off a very large percentage of the threats in Dominick's deck. So just obviously the Delver of Secrets is the one that does work through it, and thankfully for Dominick, that he was able to flip it. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and able to move away those cards like Murktide as well, then, because of Ponder. And we're going to see a Bastion here for 3, and Delver do what Delver does. As Saralyn draws for her turn, looks like, we have a Fury Pitch Simian Spirit Guide.
That's a pretty good one.
Yeah, it is. We're going to respond with a Brainstorm here, but this might be bait because I think she has a Painter in hand.
Well, she could also have a Pyroblast too, right? Because even if Dominick goes for the Force, you just go Pyroblast the Force and just pick it all up.
Yeah, this could be a really backbreaking moment here. We're going to resolve Brainstorm, resolve our Surveil. Looks like we're going to be holding Daze as our last card in hand, pitching Brainstorm. We're going to get another Surveil. Yeah, bidding the land since we put it back there. Brainstorm, tight, technical play. We love to see it. And
See if
looks like
there's a Pyroblast.
there,
There is, but we have a Daze.
yeah, and that is pretty important because we've got through everything. You have to assume there's maybe like a days left as the last card, but with Painter in hand, we're getting dangerously close to actually getting the game over with. But Brazen Bar was the pickup, kind of an important one on such low mana.
Yeah, that's massive because, like you said, like you were saying last turn, if there's a Painter in Saralyn's hand, she could go for the combo. But with the Brazen Borrower, you have the option to both maybe deploy it to put a little bit of extra pressure, but you can also break up the combo as
And
well.
here is Painter Servant, the fun card from a core set long ago. We get to pick a color, and all the cards are that color. So it looks like we're going to bounce that Painter Servant back to hand of Brazen Borrower. It fixes all bad matchups. We get a Surveil off the DRC there. And Dominick picks up a Wasteland, a huge draw.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Yeah, that's massive.
Yeah, putting Saralyn down to 7 here. And I believe that's 7 with the Brazen Borrower in the air. So, okay, we found a Pyroblast. So we're not dead yet.
Or then we get a 2-turn clock for Dominick, though.
Oh, looks like okay. Maybe Life Total's a
wrong?
little behind. Yeah. Well, that's gonna win that game there for Dominick. So I was gonna tie it up here on Legacy, and we're gonna hop back into Modern. So we're going to get Game 3 in Legacy, Game 3 in Pioneer. Let's see what's happening over here in Game 2 for Modern. As another clean, easy board state to hop into. We have a Grinding Station, Springleaf Gem, Emery, Ragavan for our Breach player Benjamin here. Other side of the table. Just 2 lands, Leyline of the Void, and it looks like a Leyline in Exile too. Maybe that one got countered, Spell Pierce, something like that. As this does seem to only be turn 3.
Yeah, I was gonna say initially when we came to the game, I saw all these permanents on the battlefield for Benjamin. I was like, this has to be what, turn 4, turn 5, turn 6, and no, it's just turn 3. This is what happens with the Breach deck. Just puts all these permanents onto the battlefield. You know, especially when you have draws that have Springleaf. You know, you can go like turn 1 I'm assuming what happened was like turn 1 Ragavan, turn 2 Springleaf Emery, maybe the Grinding Station on 3. So yeah, just a really explosive start for Benjamin, trying to establish just as many of these like trinkets, I guess is the best way to call them, onto the battlefield, and you know maybe just trying to set up a somewhat of a combo while also being able to apply a little bit of pressure.
Yeah, we see Benjamin resolve expressive iteration here. Looks like we found an Urza Saga and some other spell that we put into hand. Urza Saga good for the grind here, and Thomas does have Omnath in hand, but I don't know if Thomas has the land to go along with it. So this Ragavan might actually get to connect because you might want to keep the treasure.
Yeah, there's some cards in. So I see a Teferia, Fire Ice, and an Omnath. I can't quite tell what the other two are. A little bit darker, but yeah, if something with this, maybe you don't. Well, I mean, if you attack with the Ragavan, you probably have to block. I don't know if you can afford to.
It's Force the Vigorous, the dark card. That's why we're responding to the Urza Saga trigger before we get to do anything.
I see.
We are gonna Grinding Station mill itself. Hit another Grinding Station and an Underworld Breach. Worth noting, Benjamin does have that Hall of Generosity in the deck, so if you mill a Breach, you can get it back in the hand. I think Benjamin actually has that in hand, so we could be seeing Breach as soon as 2 turns from now if we don't draw one off the top. And it looks like some consideration to maybe
probably just recast the Grinding Station.
I think
right,
so.
I assume.
Oh, it looks like we have a Breach in hand too, so by recasting the Grinding Station, we're dangerously close to actually having the full combo again.
Yeah, I can't tell if there's a Mox Amber somewhere in there might be under the Grinding. It's hard to tell, but if there's a Mox Amber in the graveyard, yeah, we might Benjamin might just have the combo rolled up next turn if there's a Mox Amber there. So,
and if not, we can also haul for Urza Saga to go find the Mox Amber. Obviously, multiple turns from now, but still, and out you have here is Fable the Mirror Breaker, tricks up to 2, giving us a little Looty action. Thomas for sure feels like that card's got to. Oh, it's a land. Oh, there's some amount of. Oh, I see. Okay, maybe I just had to find something better than a land here. Looks like teammate Dominick is saying get rid of the Fire Ice. Who needs that? That card's not from MH2 in the real sense, so we don't need that one in our deck. Discard it. And it looks like we're going to discard Sacred Foundry.
Yeah, Fire Ice being able to clean up the Emery seems somewhat important, especially if you maybe have another way to take care of the Grinding Station, because you can maybe try to blow up the Emery, then the turn after maybe try to end up firing off the the
and
Emery,
Thomas drew another Fire Ice. So Dominick is like, I told you, I'm the GOAT. Why aren't you listening? What are you doing? As that's picked up here, and that does clear the whole board, which is important. we're really close to doing the breach combo, but we don't have any legendary creatures after these two are gone, so we won't be able to use Amber. So you might be able to trip them up here as we do some fetching. Just making sure the life totals are the same here. Always be on the right page before you shock.
Yeah, you could see something like just main phase double fire ice both of these creatures. Just get them out of here. Not even give Benjamin the ability to untap, especially with the Springleaf Drum in play, because you don't want to give Benjamin the extra mana. And you're probably going to end up firing that off anyways. Now the question is, do you do that instead of playing Omnath? That's a question that Thomas will have to answer for us.
Yeah, I think we pitched the only Omnath to force, but maybe we picked up another one there. One nice thing about Fire Ice, let's you go phase 2. A little some of the Ragavan, some at you, get the race going. Oh, it looks like we're going to deploy Teferi Time Raveler here. And
Oh, this is a really sweet line. Teferi bounce the binding, the Ragavan comes back, Benjamin keeps only one of the Ragavans, and then you can just binding the Emery most likely and have the 2/2 to block the Ragavan. That's a really heads up play for Thomas.
And you have a lot of available options. You can also wait for breach. You don't have to do anything now that you have Teferi, as long as there's not Teferi played for the opponent. You can hold that up as well. Looks like we're going to preemptively get the Emery to try and stop any sort of extra card advantage things from happening. But it's one of the strengths of this deck. You get to play all these powerful cards that interact in weird, unique ways. And
yeah, that's the first time that I've seen that come up, where binding's on a legend and you bounce your own binding to make them get rid of one of the legends, and it's basically you didn't even really lose much from bouncing your binding. You just you killed the thing that you wanted to kill.
Thomas
anyway,
drew the third Fire Ice, and Dominick is vindicated. Dominick is just like, if this game gets lost, Dominick's going to be like, "What'd I say? Even if you win the tournament at dinner, Dominick's going, should listen to me. We wouldn't have.
I told you.
Yeah, I mean, what were you thinking? You really think you needed to tap the thing? Really had to tap something? Okay, no, it's cool. I understand. I won my game. I get it. But we're seeing here some thoughts here. We're figuring out if we want to go for breach. Looks like we just drew a Scalding Tarn, so Hall of Generosity and Underworld Breach being the hand, along with this one Scalding Tarn for Benjamin. We're actually going to play the Hall of Generosity now, and looks like we're just going to use that to cast Underworld Breach.
Oh, okay.
And I don't think we have the Amber yet, but looks like we're going to take some mills at it. Because you can do some like weird. Normally, you want to do this with the Amber already, and it's clean. But you can do some things like activate Grinding Station, mill the Springleaf Drum, replay Springleaf, replay Ragavan, make a mana again, and try and go towards it. It's not a deterministic loop; it doesn't go infinitely. But you can get maybe, let's say, 12 to 16, depending on how many cards in your graveyard. Extra looks at a Mox Amber, and if you find a Bauble, then you have it actual infinite. So a lot of live looks here for Benjamin, and this is part of the reason why the Breach deck is so strong in Modern right now.
Yeah, and even with the Springleaf Drum, for each mana that Benjamin has access to, just being able to untap that Grinding Station gives you 3 more looks to try to find that Mox Amber. Maybe eventually find something like a Mishra's Bauble, not the Mox Amber that he's looking for, but the Mishra's Bauble will effectively eventually just find it, because you can just keep doing that one over and over again. So yeah, it feels like Benjamin gets maybe 6 more looks at the Amber or the Bauble.
Yeah,
I think if my math is right.
Yeah, it looks to be about 6 more looks. It looks like there's just some clarification on mana and what was spent here between the players. Pretty easy, to get a little, making sure everything's clear. It looks like we're announcing a casting of Springleaf Drum, and there was just some confusion if that mana was already used. Happens.
Yeah, no, because we paid 2 for the breach.
Yeah,
right. And we floated a mana, tap the station, sack the drum, use the mana floating, replayed the drum, so that would have still 2 lands on tap. So I think this is right.
Yeah, we should be good. There's probably just a moment of, oh, I thought that mana was there, but it was the drum mana. My bad. Happens all the time. These players understand they're here. They're in top 8. They've been playing all day. They know their decks. They know the format. Just want to make sure everything's clear, though. And it does look like we're going to use Steam Vent's mana now to cast something, potentially.
Probably just keeps casting the drum, right?
Yeah.
Or I think they've decided that that's tapped. I don't know.
Okay, so we have a judge getting involved. Maybe there was some minor confusion on what exactly was happening with everything. We're not sure. We'll let you know what goes on there. My guess from watching in the booth here is there's just a little bit of miscommunication at the table, and maybe something was shortcut that's a little unclear, and the players just want to be there. Yeah, well, let's just check legacy players. We haven't done enough of that with Anu and Julian gone. We gotta do some legacy as we figure out what's going on there. And looks like we have Leyline the Void in play once again for Saralyn. And she also has that grinding station again, but this time we have Fable the Mirrorbreaker and some land, so we're not stuck on the one lander like we were the first time.
Yeah, a little bit more lands for Saralyn to work with here. Deployed a Fable, still have the ley line this game, which was a one that, well, it was good, but Dominick was able to overcome the ley line last game. Now, the one thing that we will notice here from Dominick's side, no threats, no Delvers, no Borrowers, nothing. We're hard casting Force of Will. That's not where you want to be with the Delver deck.
Also, somehow has way more lands as well, which is always impressive too, than the Painter deck, because that means a lot of turns have gone by. Oh, we ripped EE off the top. A big one for breaking up the combo. Looks like we're going to lead on a Brainstorm, though.
Preemptively play that on 1 to get rid of the Grindstone. Potentially play it on 2 if you're worried about something like a Pyroblast. You could go, play it on 2, and then if a Blast goes in the stack, you could respond and blow up the Painter Servant. So have to kind of see how Dominick wants to deploy that. But yeah, like you said, very good at breaking up some part of the combo now. I think we got a couple lands. I think a Wasteland, a Force of Will, the Explosives, and a Delta.
Yeah, I think so. And it's so funny. Since we have this Force of Will, we're going to keep one of the lands too because we maybe need it. We're going to hold up Force of Will, play EE. We're going to go up to 7 lands as Delver here, the normal spot to be. As Saralyn draws for the turn. And looks like she's grabbing all the mana. Maybe it's another Fable the Mirrorbreaker. Could be the fabled Simian Spirit Guide beatdown plan.
Funny enough, you know what land 7 cast? Land 7 cast Hardcast Murktide.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, and we have the Wasteland too. Yeah. Dominick topped a Bolt, I believe, is the top card of the Brainstorm. The other one was another land. Looks like he's deciding if he wants Bolt versus random card. Interesting choice here. Does make sense, I think, to grab the Bolt just because, Painter Servant can get killed. And, get the mill going. Yeah, the old-fashioned way. Wow.
Going upstairs.
Can't cash your Murktides if I mill them. Few speak of this.
What an interesting game. We have a Delver player with 6 lands in play, and we have the Painter player manually activating Grindstone. Yeah. Did not think we'd get to this point in this match.
Yeah, and I don't think Watsy expected a bunch of Force of Wills countering Fable and Mirrorbreaker when that one was printed, but here we go seeing it again in this game. And there's that Fabled Murktide region you talked about. Oh my goodness.
7 mana 3/3. Let's go. Gotta end the game somehow.
It's a 7-turn clock, and the way this game is going, that is actually just good enough. Mystic Sanctuary.
Not the best against the ley line.
Oh my goodness. And we're gonna see a little shuffle duffle before we play our big old 3/3 here. And
this is what we like to call magic as Garfield intended, right?
Exactly. And this is also the turn for Saralyn. We're hardcasting the Murktide. She and everyone at home is like, you can do that. We're like, yep. Oh, we have a Pyroblast for it. And but
ooh, boy.
1 of 4, So we're working on it. We got the mill for the other ones. And we picked up a Brainstorm. The 7 lands needed for the Murktide, but also you kind of wish you had some for the Brainstorm.
True. Yeah, Dominick made all of his land drops, but okay. Delver, Ponder, Bolt. That's a pretty good Brainstorm.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Believe
it or not, that Delver might flip here too. And it looks like we're putting
really?
Yeah, I got a feeling you don't make top 8 without your Delvers flipping, So we're gonna play Bolt EE on top of the deck and deploy this Delver. And from Saralyn's perspective, Force Will is up, but you've got to do something. And we have Urza Saga.
Blow that up.
Yeah, trigger on the stack, kill it. Does cut off the Murktide region angle of the deck, though.
Yeah, we can't play the Murktide anymore. No.
Yeah, I think we're also low on actual lands that produce mana in Dominick's deck. Like, I think it's just the Wastelands that are left. Maybe there's one more island or steam vents depending on your build, but
if you're Saralyn here, do you fire off the Grindstone?
I think you do.
Dominick just resolved the Brainstorm.
You have to, because there's going to be something on top most likely that's going to trigger. So it looks like,
well, once you pass the turn and let the trigger go on the stack, it doesn't matter. Well, yeah, if you let the Delver reveal, yeah, sure.
Yeah, and also this is interesting too. From her perspective, there might just be a bunch of cards that don't matter, and she'd rather just be like, okay, yeah, like you can have, let's say Days or whatever, I can beat that card. But if it's something stronger like Force of Will, I'll get rid of it. Or maybe Expressive Iteration, which was a good one.
I told you Dominick was going to draw into Expressive after you Grindstone.
Bolt, Days, Brainstorm 2 off the Expressive. Wow, that is pretty good.
Jeez. This is a really fun game to watch. I'm having a blast
Yeah, this
watching
has been
this
a
one.
sweet one. We exiled the brainstorm here. Looks like we're gonna do that. We picked up Days as the one card off expressive there. And brainstorm do. Fiddle with
Just
cards.
more guess. It's almost like Brainstorm finds you every card you
Yeah,
need.
it's
Who'd
crazy
have
what these
thunk?
one mana cantrips can do. And looks like we have Ponder. Probably gonna end up shuffling, but maybe the third card's really good. Third card's a DRC.
The
That counts as
Channeler.
really good when you need a threat. Yeah.
True. Yeah, I was thinking that, only being a 1/1 in the face of the ley line, but it's probably still worth it just being able to, fix your draws throughout the course of the game with your casting your other cantrips and bolts. So
Yeah,
it's
Saralyn
probably worth it.
also is at 16 now after the attack, so it actually creates a lethal clock of turn sooner. Looks like we are going to fire her brainstorm response, get our surveil going.
Yeah, this Fury is
Yeah.
that's a big one. Dominick's looking for a force now. I don't know if obviously he hard cast 2. I don't know if there's a
Oh,
force that was cast prior to that. Actually finds the force as the third card.
wow,
My
that was
goodness.
huge. Delver do what Delver does. And we're going to put some cards back and probably force this Fury, surveil away the land we had there, and get the beats going.
Oh god. Yeah, get rid of that daze. We don't want that. Yeah, I imagine he probably topped the land and just
Yep.
surveilled that. Yep, very, very heads
Yeah.
up. Wow, this whew.
Saralyn needs Painter right about now. And it looks like that's not her last card. Looks like she. Oh, it is. Oh,
It is! Wow!
she got. She
Okay.
just has to
Got a fade a bolt.
fade a bolt, which we know is there.
Yeah, we
Oh
know it's
my
there.
gosh.
What an
Oh,
unreal game.
wow. We've been the Murktide. No respect for the 3/3 beats. I understand. Have a nice day. Cast
But
Ponder.
we got
Surveil
rid of the
DSC.
7th land.
There's more lands, baby. We can find them. Getting rid of the days, though. Find a wasteland. See what I'm talking about? We could have got there.
Oh
Although,
my god, Jesus, he's got a Delver and an iteration. So you draw the Delver, flip the iteration, cast the iteration next turn. My goodness.
goodness
Wow.
gracious. Yeah, we need to probably find another painter in the next 2 turns where things are going to be bad.
Yeah.
And Saralyn due for a good one. Looks like Benjamin also won that game here as we get a little update on the overlay here. Benjamin won game 2 over Thomas. Looks like we found the Mox Amber and we did it. Glad to have that all resolved.
Yeah.
And Saralyn in the tank. Maybe Dominick here is actually just thinking
You got a library count, huh? Can't be
huh.
that close.
Yeah. I'm okay. This has got to be a response mill, right? Okay, yeah.
We can't let him have the iteration.
Yeah.
God, no.
All right. The way this is going, I'm just going to top deck some unbeatable card, anyways.
This is still rough for Sarah though, because the only way out is a painter, but you don't have enough mana, and you're facing a 2-turn clock. So
yeah, I wonder if you're Sarah, would you hold a land because your opponent wouldn't know, right? Like you need the 2 mana to activate, right? And so if you get,
true.
I don't know, this could be some big brain stuff. We'll have to see what happens here as we get a Ponder bidding the DRC. Don't really need that one. All right, Dominick finally has a low amount of gas.
Finally, we
Yeah.
shuffle. I don't think he's ever shuffled up a ponder in his life before.
It's the worst
but
part of Ponder. It's part of the strongest, but it's also part of the
Yeah.
worst.
So, Grindstone's 3 to activate, right? I believe.
Is
Yeah,
it?
3 to
I thought it
activate.
was 2. Oh,
Yeah, it's 3. So we would need a soul land in
Ancient
hand,
King.
which, to be fair, you probably would want to hold the soul land anyways because you're afraid of Dominic having a wasteland. So theoretically, Saralyn could have held a soul land.
Yeah, it's not non-zero, and we are going to see an attack for 7, putting Saralyn to 5. This is the big draw step. And she has
Come
something.
on, soul land painter. Come on, do
She
it.
can also draw Pyroblast.
We got 2 mana.
Goblin Engineer.
That's
Okay.
not quite there.
Are there any interesting artifacts from a commander
exactly.
set or something? We get to go put an artifact from our deck into the graveyard. We're gonna put Mox Opal. Not what I was looking for. I was looking for Fury from the graveyard. That's what I was thinking about.
Yeah, not quite.
Yeah, maybe a Pyroblast.
Just so we can reanimate some artifact that reanimates a Fury. Yeah, that's true. She could have a Pyroblast.
Yeah, you
as the last
Pyroblast
card.
and you block, and then you buy a turn.
Oh, wait, I just realized something. So that actually would work if you go Pyroblast. Okay, so what's going to happen? What would say if Saralyn draws a land? You can go as long as Engineer isn't sorcery only. You can go. Expressive Variations good draw. You can go play your land, 3 mana, activate Grindstone, hold priority, sack the Grindstone, get back to Painter Servant.
Holy moly, surely that'd be so sick. I can't wait to see that, but we have an expressive iteration first. But worth noting, Dominick has used at least 3 forces, at least 3 bolts. So we are low on things that can matter here. Oh, we find the 4th bolt. Oh my goodness, what a crazy game.
What a
Dominick
crazy game.
winning the first one for his team for top 8. So now it's down to Thomas and Hayden. One of them needs to cross the finish line. We're hopping back to Modern. We're going to see what's happening with Breach versus the Karuga deck again. Looks like this time kind of similar to last. We have a Ragavan that's connected a little bit. It looks like we have a Teferi that got Mystical Disputed from Benjamin by Thomas. And it looks like we're just getting a little conversation here as to what we should be doing. As Leyline Binding is the play. Oh.
Assume you're going to go off to the Ragavan here, because that kind of shuts off the Amber as well. Now, again, it's one of those things where it's really awkward. Like, because the Amber's in play, you want to kill the Ragavan main phase, but that also opens up the ability for Benjamin to have a second one. So
yeah, it's a really hard line to walk, and those sort of small things matter. But Benjamin also has an Otawara in hand, which can unsummon the Leyline Binding, which might matter if we get a tap out situation because we have Breach in hand. So if we were to do that and rip a grinding station, you would have the combo. As we see a little read of the Otawara.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I see what you're saying. You just go sack the treasure, bounce the binding, get back the Ragavan, which turns on the Amber. Then you have 4 mana. Okay, yeah, I got you. I see what you're saying.
Yeah, and you know, so I passed the Triumph check. There are none in play. That Leyline Binding still costs 2 mana, which means this is like the one turn to do it. Now, it's a very high risk play, but you know, your Otawara is probably not doing much more. Our Apple Watch is letting us know about the weather right now. You know, cloudy, chance of meatballs. And looks like we're having some discussion here from Thomas. I'm very interested. I don't know. The high roller in me and the coverage in me wants to see the unsummon into Rip the Grinding Station. But the player in me
yeah, if you take a look at Thomas's hand, there's that dark card that we saw last game. So that is a copy of Force of Vigor. And Thomas just picked up Karuga. So if Benjamin does take that line, most likely what's going to happen is Thomas is going to upkeep, fire off the Force, blow up the Mox Amber and the Saga. And that could be really, really backbreaking. Now, I guess the upside for that line is you would still have the Ragavan in place, so you'd maybe be able to attack and get some treasures that way. But that would probably prompt the Force from Thomas.
Yeah, and if you're Benjamin here, you've got to know at this point there's something going on when it comes to a free spell. And the one that makes the most sense to be the most backbreaking here is Force of Vigor. So we could see it. We even see Hayden checking in over here, being like, hey, you know, this untimed rounds in top 8, right? This one super matters for us. Let's make sure we're all putting all hands on deck here. Thomas Hayden, both of them drove or flew from Canada, I believe, to get here. I heard them talking earlier in an interview. So, you know, they won it. They've got the fire.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so definitely making sure that they find the best line, going through all the possible options, lots of pointing, lots of, hey, what if I do this? So, you know, they're ultimately they decide to pass. So the action's going to be on Benjamin. We'll have to see if Benjamin decides to go for that Otawara. Now, you know, obviously from Benjamin's side of things, you have to figure out, well, my opponent has 1 mana, and they're all talking about what if I do this? What if I do that? So you can kind of assume that there's at least one, maybe 2 free spells in Thomas's hand.
Yeah. Yeah, you've got to figure it out at that point. And then it's an interesting spot too of do you try to get them to force it or what happens here? You know, Benjamin and Aren both need to win these games if they're going to move on to the top 4 of the NRG today. A lot of line. Looks like there's maybe some looking over there at Pioneer happening now, double checking, you know, mono green. How much mana do I have? Okay, cool. I'll use all of it. We draw for turn here. And Urza Saga goes up to 2. So looks like no upkeep stop. We're in the Force of Vigor. So we are going to get some constructs if that's what we want to do. And expressive iteration.
Yeah,
Fired often.
Iteration into looks like a Breach, a Saga, and I think maybe a Fable.
Yeah.
Heat. Okay, a Heat.
Okay. Oh, we're going to put Heat in hand. Nice. And then Saga as the play. We might see a little bit of Force of Vigor here with the trigger on the stack to kill both of them. Looks like now we're going to wait for a Underworld Breach turn. which I think is a really reasonable line of play. You can probably beat the Urza Saga fair plan if you weren't going to do it before. Maybe a little risky to do it now. And we're just going to make sure we're not losing to the combo because Karuga can outdo it all. Oh, it looks like we are going to actually do it. Okay, maybe there's a little bit of. It wasn't an okay, you're good hand motion. It was a give me a second for me to blow you up all your lands. As we do see a floating of mana here from Urza Saga.
Yeah, I mean, it is very appealing to go after a couple of lands here, effectively the double stone rain, but the other thing is like you've given up your Karuga. I guess the Karuga's not that good, only draws one card right now, but you don't really have a lot of pressure, and maybe giving Benjamin, I guess you feel like maybe if you don't have a lot of pressure, you don't want to give Benjamin the time with those sagas, maybe makes a construct or something like that. So maybe you feel like it's a force play.
Yeah, maybe. And we see Express Federation here finding Emery, and we can do the old Emery trick if we don't have a land where we can put it on the stack and then use the treasure to pay for it. Looks like we do have a land, so we get to keep the treasure. But Emery is a good way to kind of pull ahead here. As you know, Benjamin keeps ripping Express Federation, so it has a lot of card advantage. Thomas looks to have maybe one more removal spell in hand and just a bunch of lands. Got a Fury, and that's it.
Yeah, Fury couple lands. Had the Karuga, but had to pitch that to the Force of Vigor. Yeah, it's kind of tough. Like I was gonna say, well, actually, we can't hardcast the forest, right? We have Fountain, Vents, Forest, Island, Plains, I think. So I was gonna say maybe Thomas should have held off and possibly could have hardcast the forest, but he can't. There's no double green. I don't know if there's maybe a green source in the hand.
Oh, along those lines, I mean, there might be a green source in hand. There might be a red source too. Fury currently can't get cast. Now, there's a bunch of lands in hand. Maybe that's not the case. Oh, it looks like one was Leyline Binding. Ah, I was duped, you see.
You're too used to looking for triumphs.
I am. I'm on the triumph hunt. I'm trying to, get my bingo card filled out. Looks like we just have another thing we draw. Maybe it's just another Leyline Binding in the middle there.
I think it is another binding, and then possibly, I think maybe an Otawara.
Hall of Generosity, huge here. Let's just go for the breach stuff, but also this lets us saga out. And with Thomas presenting no clock, this is what we talked about at the beginning of the round with Hall of Generosity. It can take over this game.
Right. Thomas, it really wants to just kind of sit back and play it like a kind of a 1-for-1 game, develop an Omnath, maybe get some card advantage that way. But all that stuff is, well, never mind. We're just going to we're just tapping we don't need the Hall anyways. We're going for a breach here.
Yeah, and I really like this because it forces any sort of interaction right now to happen. Otherwise, I'm just going to value breach at worst, and like cast Expressive Federation a few times, or I'm going to set up this to Fairy, which works with the Mox Amber. If we have another Mox Amber, which we do in hand, we can play Emery, and we're really close.
So yeah, now, I mean, if you're in Thomas's seat, you probably just have to Binding the Breach, right?
I would think that that's high on the list. Maybe you can Binding the Opal. That's a little weird, but I guess you just want to get rid of Breach. But the problem with getting rid of Breach is that if you do that, Teferi can unsummon the Breach, the Leyline Binding that has Breach on it, and then later go for it again. So a lot of weird intricacies here, and this is one of the cool things about Modern post MH2 world. A lot of thoughts about that set, but the complexity and the lines that are playable nowadays in Modern are way, way higher. And this is something that's really exciting to see here. As Thomas's team is taking a look at what we're supposed to do here. And I think we are still
letting it go.
Oh yeah, okay, we're letting it happen. All right.
Yeah, which like you said, it kind of makes sense if you go for the breach. It's just going to get bounced by the Teferi anyway. So maybe decides to hold the binding for the Teferi itself, and just try to deal with that, and then maybe has some other sort of interaction he can hold up next turn. But yeah, with
wait, we can win if we can bounce the Mox Amber, draw a card, it will float the mana, draw a Grinding Station, game over. Because you have the other Mox in hand. So there is a line for lethal here. And Benjamin knows that the opponent has a lot of cards that can just kill Teferi right away. So this is a really great moment here to actually pull way far ahead. And that's not bad. Also, you can, unsummon the Leyline Binding that has Emery on it and then mill 4. So there's a bunch of different lines here that give you a chance to win.
You do that, though, you only have 1 mana, though, right? Well, that's actually not true, because you could replay the Amber, right? So you could say, unsummon the Binding, Emery, mill 4, hit the station, play the second Amber, bin the first one, cast floated mana, cast the second one, floated mana, play the station, and go 100%.
Yeah, and it looks like we are going to take the Mox Amber line. This one might be a little bit more conservative since you're not giving your opponent back a Leyline of the Void. But still a line that has a lethal line, a lethalness to it, which is really crazy when you think about it.
It's like we picked up a saga there for
Oh,
Benjamin.
we
So.
had
Oh,
the
we just had the
station.
station.
Oh,
We just totally
okay.
missed that. Okay.
Maybe that was
No.
milled before we got here.
Well,
yeah,
we're done
this
here then.
seems to be lethal then, as long as we have.
Yeah, I think this is
Yeah,
it.
because station will trigger. Station, fun fact, triggers off itself. So we can mill the Mox Amber
Yep.
here and have it still untap to keep going. As long as Benjamin knows that trick. You play Magic Online anytime, you will experience that. It's also a fun card that triggers off your opponent's artifacts. So Benjamin here, probably just double checking. Once again, you're in this high stakes situation. You want to make sure you're not missing a beat. And untimed round, you can take it. Aren's already playing the other game. They're going to have to win too. So let's just double check everything. And
yeah, there's even the second Amber in hand, so you don't have to spew the first 3 cards off of the second Amber. So yeah, this should.
do we not have a legendary creature in the graveyard? Because if that was the case, then I guess we were supposed to unsummon the Emery.
The fairy.
We have Otawara.
Oh, I see. Okay, so we were waiting on response to the grinding station. Okay, I gotcha.
Gotcha. So it was a trigger of the grinding station, but not the way we thought. Interesting. Okay.
So we have the second Amber, but we'd be a mana short to replay the breach, right? Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
But, we have Hall Generosity to Fairy in play. You're in a pretty good spot. This is one of the things we keep talking about in this matchup, 4-color control versus Underworld Breach. If you don't have a clock from the 4-color control deck, you can reach these game states a lot and you just kind of get beaten with value. Looks like we are going to mill the Amber just to get it in the graveyard. Weirdly safer in the graveyard than in play, so...
Yeah, like what's Thomas's plan at this point? There's just too much stuff in play. There's the hall, the Teferi, the station. The Amber's in hand. There's just like the breach is in hand. It's like, what are you even supposed to do from Thomas's point? You have no pressure. You can't attack the Teferi. I mean, I guess you can try to maybe Fury the Teferi and start there. Maybe you can like binding the station, but that doesn't do it because you can just sack the station in response. It's just I don't really think that there's a lot that Thomas can do.
We can't hardcast the Fury still, and if we hardcast Fury, we can't actually do Leyline binding on the same turn unless we have like Blood Crypt in our deck, which I don't think we do. Looks like we do have Fire Ice, so we're gonna go a little 1-1, put Benjamin down to 12, kill that Teferi 3. First things first there, and then we do have Leyline binding, so I guess we can kill the binding. We're Leyline binding it in the breach, and then you won't be able to fully combo, but you will get one play.
Yeah, we can hold up the binding.
Oh, and with the land, your breach can actually just buy back to Fairy again.
You can breach, right? No, or yeah, you could do that, or you could go breach.
Yeah, I guess either one works, depending on which one you think is the safest.
Yeah, because if you just go breach, then the Leyline binding's not good enough, because if Thomas targets the station...
Yeah.
Well, okay, hold on. Well, then if Thomas targets the station, you would tap the station sack itself. Where you're short a legend though, right?
Well, yeah, you're short the legend unless we drew one. But if you play Teferi here, you force the binding, and once again, Teferi will now have that binding on suspend for whenever we want it.
Yeah. Okay.
So.
Oh, right. Because now if you binding the breach, you just go bounce the bind and kill you. Okay,
yeah.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
So, I gotcha.
Yeah. So. It's going to be interesting to hear what we do with this Teferi. We might take up in order to play around a card like that. Looks like we're just going to get the breach back into play here. I guess with the Mox Ambers from hand, there's no point in waiting. I think we forgot to draw our card off of the Teferi, but that's okay.
Who needs it?
Yeah, game's pretty much over from this point. I believe Benjamin is playing a Grape Shot and not Thassa's Oracle, which is the only small difference here. Oh, look.
Now, question with that. Are you... never mind, you have the breach. I was going to say, are you ever worried about running out of spells? But you can just cast the Grape Shot twice.
Yeah, so well, we need to get the actual red mana is the only problem right now. Because I think we've used our land for turn.
Oh, that's true.
So, this is a spot where maybe in closed deck list, Thomas is tilted, just like, whatever, you got me, picks up the cards. Not here. We know it's Grape Shot.
Yeah, and you're right, though. How do we get to red mana,
So we can get Emery in play off of blue from the Amber, Springleaf Drum from the graveyard if we left it in, make a red. play a Ragavan,
Gotcha.
do it.
Okay.
And that's what happens if you get beat up by Jesse Robkin for 50 hours in the matchup. You learn how to do these things because it happens to you and you think, I can't lose. And then you lose somehow. So,
Oh, Benjamin also has the Loraas, so you can bounce the biting that's on Ragavan and then make right off the Ember. Yeah, chat brings up a good point. Okay. Yep.
Okay. Oh,
That's
that
the
that was
easier way to do it.
that was the thing they were showing. Okay, I saw Benjamin flashing a card, but I didn't recognize what it was. I thought it was like I still have all these moments, but I don't. It's an actual moment of that, and we hit the grape shot here. And so yeah, we're gonna see a little bit of looping of Mox Amber come in, make some mana, just like chat perfectly mentioning. Chat would never miss lethal. We're gonna see Mox Amber here, make some mana, do the thing. By the way, chat, if you're enjoying this, make sure to click the follow button. That way you don't miss any awesome paper magic. The Eternal formats in Paper Magic are some of the coolest things. So make sure to click that follow. And, if you have a Twitch Prime, throw it our way. We'd love to see it. But anyways, we're going off here with some mills from the grinding station. It's like we found Ragavan. Maybe we'll just Emery. Yeah, we have the Emery Springleaf Drum, like we talked about before too. So
yeah, Benjamin has a bunch of different ways to red mana, so this one should be wrapped up. I mean, like I said, the only thing that could even be a consideration is Storm Count, but even if that's the case, you can just cast the Grape Shot twice, so I don't really think that's going to matter.
Yeah, you'd have to be really low on deck for the Grape Shot twice to not be lethal. I guess the thing about it would be if you can get the 4 mana in time, but it shouldn't be a huge problem.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I'm going to guess what's happening here, by the way, is that we're helping our Pioneer player.
Yeah,
because
I was just going to say, since this match is effectively over, do we want to switch to Pioneer? What are we thinking?
I think so. Something kind of wild would probably have to happen. Yeah, we're going to hop over to Pioneer right now. Yeah, it looks like that was what was happening too. We're checking things out. So, game state update. Shane Vale has 6 activations on it. All our Planeswalkers get used 6 times.
I guess we were missing much.
Yeah. Worth noting, there's no Karn. So I'm not sure. Maybe there's a Karn hand. Maybe there's a Pestilent Cauldron. I'm not sure. But currently, not infinite. Just a lot of it.
Yeah, just like you said, a Googleplex, but not infinite.
Yeah. And I am that's a Bank Buster. Okay, so we have Bank Buster, which can make the black mana to trigger Cauldron to mill. Kind of strong, but I have to think that since the teammate was helping, we're doing one of those freestyle combos we talked about before, where we have a lot and we can do a lot of things, but we don't have the win exactly. And it looks like we're going to count to see
55.
Oh, there is. Okay, well then this is probably over because one thing that can happen, chat, is you can play the Cauldron and then untap it with Kiora, and you don't need to actually have enough cards equal to their deck. You can just like gain 30 life and then activate Cauldron 3 times or whatever, and they lose.
Yeah, untap it with Kiora. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was going to
say if for some reason the Aren can't kill Hayden this turn, then the thing in the ice maybe could help us get back to the game. But yeah, it seems like this one might also be a formality too.
Oh, you know what it is? I know what's going on here. I know why it's so weird to me. We had the Heart of Kirin rare combo kill, where we had to kill our own walkers and buy them back. The 1 in a million situation. I love it. It's so sick. But we are going to see
that one doesn't come up very often.
Yeah. Bankbuster activate, gets you the black mana from the treasure and the pilot token you make. That pilot, not really needed, but appreciated, as we will be playing Pestilent Cauldron here in a second after we wish for it with Karn. It does look like the Restorative Burst is in exile at the moment, so we're just going to resolve Karn, which if we got this far, it's going to be pretty easy to do. Here it comes. And
we get 6 activations of the Karn.
Yeah, and we get the Cauldron. Once again, we gained a bunch of life here for Aren, so that's there. And then it looks like we're going back here to Modern since that game is over. And it looks like the Modern player is picking up. Thomas looks like beaten by Underworld Breach. Looks like we did get the Ragavan, and we had the 2 grape shots left, and that is going to do it. So congratulations to the team of Aren, Benjamin, and Saralyn. Oh, sorry. I thought we cut away. I thought there was a concession. It looks like we were just jumping back in there in a Modern. So we're close. Things aren't over yet. It's looking dangerous. Once again, this is a moment where Aren just needs to make sure we play tight, play smart, and don't, do anything we're not supposed to do.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, if Aren,
start searching.
Well, there's the Elvish Mist again. When we came back to the game, Aren was at 55, and I have to imagine that means, Pestilent Cauldron was cast several times, and you have the black mana off of the treasure, so I'm going to assume that would be enough. We
Yeah.
see Wrestling Cauldron being cast, so we're gonna find out if it's enough because you still got some activations of the Cure to untap it. So I'd find it hard to believe that it's not.
Yeah, so if you're watching at home and you're like, what are these dice in front of these planeswalkers? That's how many times we've used them for Chain Veil. And it looks like it is a concession here. We activate Nykthos, and then now we're going to be able to untap with Kiora. And we're going to mill about 30 cards each activation. So looks like Hayden and them having a little talk. But once again, congratulations to Aren, Benjamin, and Saralyn. Moving on to our semifinals. We're going to take a moment here. We're going to keep talking to you, but we're going to work on getting the semifinals up as soon as possible. But wow, what a crazy top 8 there, Devin, for the first round of it.